Welcome back to Deep Dish Sports. Time for a Purdue Big Ten Tournament podcast. Robbie Dupre and Jordan Kessler joining me on Skype. I'm Clint Cole. I'm in North Carolina. Robbie is in, where are you?
Chicago.
And Jordan is in?
Lafayette.
All right. Well, these two guys have been have covered the Boilermakers for most of the games. Now we've had a couple other people like Josh and Kyle. Who else went? Will went. Anybody else go? We had like Matt Reilly and Chris Kostadakis take pictures for us, but Jordan and Robbie, I think, probably covered the most games. Would you say? I think you guys probably did. Kyle did a lot at the beginning, but not as much here lately.
I just did the last two.
Yeah, so.
But I have season tickets, so I've been there.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's cool.
I don't think anyone else did more than one except Kyle. So I know Josh, or did Josh do two? Josh might have
did a couple, I think.
He did a couple, but Jordan's written some previews for us, and so we're going to do a little Big Ten tournament preview. Talk about the awards that came out yesterday, our awards that we did, and then we'll talk about Purdue's season as a whole, and then give our predictions for the Big Ten tournament that starts tomorrow, which is Wednesday. This is a Tuesday night. Tomorrow at, are these times right? 3:30? 4:30. It's 4:30 Eastern time. These two games nobody needs to watch. Minnesota and Illinois, and Rutgers and Nebraska. It's terrible. And then the 8-9 matchups, Northwestern and Michigan. So I don't think anyone wants to watch that either. So that moves us ahead to the Iowa game. But let's start with the Purdue stuff. And you guys want to start with the awards or season in review, or what do you want to do? Let's do the season first, then do the awards. Okay. You guys want to do that?
Sounds good.
You guys remember that Purdue didn't lose until playing Butler a week before Christmas at the Crossroads Classic, a team that Purdue hasn't beaten. I can't remember the last time Purdue beat them, and Purdue always seems to suck at the Crossroads Classic. But it was really it was their first game against a ranked opponent, and they lost by 6 in that one. That was really kind of the beginning of the good teams. Now they did play Pitt, they did play New Mexico, they did play Florida, but none of those teams finished the season ranked. And I don't know, are any of those teams going to be tournament teams? Is Florida going to be a tournament team?
I think Florida's a bubble team, but I think they're on the outside looking in.
What about the other two?
Pitt, I thought, might be in.
I believe both Pitt and Vanderbilt are bubble teams as well.
Are they both bubble?
Vanderbilt's had kind of an up and down year. They've beat some good teams, and then they've struggled as well.
A lot of people thought Vanderbilt would be a lot better than they were this year, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, they did well last year, and Jones is going to is an NBA talent. They've got other size, and they've got some good guards. There's probably a video that's going to start here. Let's see. Hope not. Mute. There we go. Let's see which teams have work to do in cups. I just want to see how good these teams have done this year. Let's see.
Pittsburgh has 20 wins.
It says probably in Pitt, so Pitt might make it. What conference is New Mexico in? Mountain West?
Mountain West, yeah.
I didn't even think they didn't even get a story. Well, whatever. And then Florida in the SEC. Let's see. Probably out Florida. So there you go. So they really played maybe one.
Don't have big moments.
What is this?
Little moments.
No moments. Okay. So their first really tough opponent they played in Butler, they lost. They came back and beat Vanderbilt. And then the Big Ten season started with a win at Wisconsin. Nathan and I talked about it today. What is crazy bugs? Nathan and I talked about it today. When Purdue played Wisconsin the first time, it's not the same Wisconsin team that it is now. Purdue did win that game. And then following that up, the second game of the Big Ten tournament was that game against Iowa, when Iowa was top. What was Iowa then? They were top 5, weren't they?
Not at the time. They were actually actually the first time we played them. They were unranked. They had just beat number 1 Michigan State.
Right, that's what it was.
And then they midweek, and then they beat us, and they actually jumped from unranked all the way up into the teens, like 15,
I remember that,
16.
yeah, because they beat us those 2 games back to back, and then they really sucked lately, which has been good because that might be Purdue's opponent on Friday. But then the Michigan game, they blew them out. Will and I went to that game. Purdue won by 17, 14-2 at that time. And then I think the biggest the weirdest game all year was the next game, that loss against Illinois. Like, you see how bad Illinois is, and we lost by 14 points there. I know I missed a lot of games. Not missed, but I didn't get to pay full attention to a lot of these games because I was doing Tulane stuff, especially the weekend games. I know you guys watched them. What do you guys remember from that Illinois game?
The thing that stuck out to me, the thing that stuck out to me was Illinois just played with a lot of effort, and they really were in sync on defense, which was surprising because coming in, they were one of the worst teams in the country on the defensive end. So I don't know what John Gross told them before the game, but honestly, looking back at the course of the season and the way Illinois finished, that was not a great loss, but I mean,
Minnesota.
We just caught them on the wrong night. Honestly, they played phenomenal, and we just couldn't get it going.
Minnesota and Rutgers are the only two teams that had worse records in the Big Ten than them. Yeah. I mean, that's really bad. Now, obviously, on the road in the Big Ten, obviously anything can happen. Looks like we were tied at halftime. I didn't realize that. And then
and wasn't it Malcolm Hill that went off, if I remember right? Malcolm Hill. Or was it Nunn?
It says Kendrick Nunn and Malcolm Hill scored 52 points combined in that game. That's what it was. So
one of the two just went off after halftime, and we couldn't stop them.
So I would be great if Illinois got through and we had to play Illinois. If they beat Iowa, beat Illinois again. But
an interesting fact, though, our Big Ten losses, I believe 4 of them were to teams that started with an I. Interestingly enough, twice to Iowa, once to Indiana, and once to Illinois. Just one of those weird things that happens in a season that makes no sense at all.
Also, our losses were outside of that Illinois game. We've got number 4 Maryland, number 9 Iowa, number 22 Big Ten champion Indiana. So outside of that Illinois game, there really wasn't any bad losses this year.
Because Michigan was playing all right when we played them in Ann Arbor. Right. It wasn't really a bad loss.
Still a game they probably should have won. But that Illinois, I mean, you talk about last year, those games at the beginning of the year are pretty bad, and then the start of the Big Ten season wasn't very good. Then Purdue turned it on at the end of last year. But this year, pretty steady. You got a lot of Purdue fans out there, a couple other sites out there. I'm not going to mention any names that just flip out, for absolutely no reason. Purdue finished 24-7 this year. Like 2 years ago, Purdue was dead last in the Big Ten. People complain about some of the dumbest
garbage.
It's just, I don't know, but that's why we're here and a voice of reason. But I guess moving through the schedule after that Illinois game, reeled off 3 in a row against a couple of bad teams. The fun one was at Rutgers when they won by 50.
Jaquil.
Yeah, that was his double-double. He had, 12 and 13 that game, 10 minutes or something?
10 minutes or something like that.
And he got a concussion in practice and then didn't play. But that game, before the game, I told Robbie and Will and Josh that Purdue was going to win by 80. And they were winning by 40 at halftime or something, so it was close. So
it was looking like it was going to be possible.
I was clearly joking, but 50 points, it was nice to see them destroy a team. Those are just fun games to watch. Moving through, then they played Ohio State, an Ohio State team that's caught fire as of late, but wasn't as good at the end of January, won by double digits. And then the second game at Iowa, I definitely had a Tulane game that day. What do you guys remember from that game in Iowa City?
It was another game. It was another game. We jumped out to a pretty good lead in the first half, and then it was one of our second half collapses. I think we went through a big scoring drought halfway through, and Iowa, I remember right, Jock hit some big threes in the second half, and
looks like Purdue was up by 2 at halftime and outscored by 14 in the second half.
Yeah,
gave up 50 points in that second half.
Yeah,
Robbie,
we really came out dead. Probably the first 5, 8, 10 minutes of that half, and just could never really recover. They kind of knocked us down, and we really never were able to get back up after that. Yep. I know that was the game that Biggie tweaked his ankle.
Yep.
So I know he wound up playing 25 minutes. I'm reading the recap right now, but was only shot 2 of 9. Peter Jock hit 6 of 12 from the floor, and I remember Utah hit some just ridiculous shots that game, which he does every now and then. But the biggest thing was just we did not match their energy coming out of the locker room the second half, which was really the difference in that game.
I feel like that's happened multiple times this year. Then they got to win it at Minnesota by 4 points, which I did get to watch that game, and that was almost because that would have been back-to-back losses. And Purdue didn't lose 2 in a row all season, which you got to give Painter credit for that. I mean, that's something. You know, Robbie, you play. Jordan, I don't know if you played. I'm sure you played sports at some point in your lifetime. But you guys know that you lose a game, 1 loss can turn into 2 losses, which can turn into 4 losses, which that snowball effect. You know, a lot of it's on the players, but it's also on the coach to get your mind right again, get refocused, and not losing 2 games in a row all season is actually a pretty big feat for Purdue.
And one thing that a lot of people lose focus of is the fact that the important thing is to get everything right by the end of the year. In March, be playing your best basketball. We had a few hiccups there in February. Had a letdown against Michigan at the end of the game, and lost to Indiana. But I feel like the important thing is come tournament time, we got to be playing well, because a great regular season doesn't mean anything if you get upset in the first weekend of the tournament. So that's the important thing to me.
You're not going to go undefeated. I mean, Kentucky almost did it last year, but you're not going to go undefeated. It's just not going to happen. You're going to lose games. You lost 7 out of 31 games. It's pretty good. I mean, like I said, 2 years ago, dead last.
Like you said, Rob, I felt like that second half of that IU game on the comeback kind of got our whole team, offensively speaking, kind of going. Because after that second half of that IU game, I mean, we scored 83 points, 81 points, 91 points. It just seemed like that sparked something in our offense. And I asked Coach Painter, after the Wisconsin game about how we look. You want to be hot going into the tournament, and does he feel like the offensive numbers show that? And if he felt like that's how his team was, and he said, yeah, offensively, he felt like this is as good as we played all year. So just seemed like that after halftime, or when we got down 17 or 18 to IU, it just seemed like from then on our offense was a lot better the rest of the year.
And there has not been a team all year that has just had way more talent than us and beat Purdue that way. Every single game. I mean, we beat Michigan State, who's the number 2 ranked team in the country, and it wasn't a huge upset. People were going into that game expecting us to win. We faced Maryland and Iowa when they were top 10 teams, and we've gone toe-to-toe with everyone we've played.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of those losses have been either strategic things that we've come short on, or just we haven't matched the other team's energy level, which should give Purdue fans hope heading into the tournament that talent-wise we can go toe-to-toe with any team in the country.
I've told you guys that, obviously depending on brackets, actually we'll get to that in a second. Let's finish with the rundown here. After that Nebraska, where were we? Rutgers, I forgot where we were. Nebraska game they won, then they lost at Maryland. They were another second half collapse, and the big win in overtime against Michigan State when Valentine was called for that foul running through the screen. AJ hit 1 of 2, or not? It wasn't AJ, was it?
It was Rayfeld.
Rayfeld Davis hit 1 of 2. Then the loss at Michigan, he scored 56 points. Once again, he threw that one in there at the Illinois game. I know Michigan was playing a little better, but 56 points, not going to happen much for Purdue. And then Northwestern, I don't know why they have a basketball team. And then the Indiana loss, which you're a goaltend or interference away from having a chance to tie or win, and that last possession. And then they've won 3 in a row. The game against Maryland, a top 10 team, they beat another top 10 team. They beat Nebraska soundly. The biggest margin of home defeat for Nebraska in that new stadium. Is that right? Something, I don't know what it was. They won by 19. Even though Siobhan Shields scored, seemed like he hit every shot he took. And and then they finished the game Sunday against Wisconsin with the win. The one thing we didn't get to do a show last week, I wanted to, because I wanted to say that what I want to see in this Wisconsin game is we've played a good first half. We've played a good second half sometimes. We've had some comebacks, 20 points down, 19, whatever it is. I wanted to see a game against a quality opponent from start to finish where, the game, it might be a close game. I mean, you're going to play good teams. It's going to be a close game. But I wanted to see them not blow a big lead and have to come from behind after winning. And I think Purdue did a pretty good job. I know it got close there for a while, but they ended up winning by 11 points. A good Wisconsin team. I mean, they're playing well right now.
Yeah, Wisconsin actually came in that game. They had won 11 of their last 12 games.
They started the only loss in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Their only loss in that stretch was on February 18th at Michigan State. I mean, but in that stretch, they beat Michigan State, they beat Indiana, they beat Maryland, they beat Iowa. They were probably one of the hottest teams in the country coming into that game. And Purdue really, held a pretty close to a double-digit lead for the majority of the second half. Exactly. And Wisconsin, I saw a stat. I actually watched the replay of the game yesterday. At one point, we were on either 29-10 or a 30-10 run against Wisconsin to go from down double digits to up double digits. So I felt like the way they came in and the way we responded and played that whole game was huge.
Jordan, you were at the game. What stood out to you, I guess, at the ball game?
Kind of like you said, once Purdue went on that run that Robbie just talked about, it never got any closer than 7, and they finally seemed to put a team away that they hadn't done all year. They've always let a team kind of come back, like the Maryland game as an example, and they just didn't let them come back. They got within 7, but then Purdue shut the door, hit their free throws, and finished the game winning by double digits. So it was really nice to see that before the tournament.
You guys have anything else?
I was just going to point out one thing that has been huge for Purdue's offense, especially, you look at from the Indiana game on where we've scored over 80 points in every game, has been the contribution from some of the wing players. Against Nebraska, Edwards had 20 points. Against Wisconsin, PJ had 22 points. Dakota came off the bench against Maryland and scored 17. Getting those contributions not only adds to the scoring, but opens things up inside for our bigs to be able to work. Yeah. So that's been, to me, the biggest difference in our offensive output the last few games.
I was talking to Nathan today about it, and you can listen to the interview with Nathan Baird of the Lafayette Journal-Courier right after this is finished. I'll put them together so you can listen to that right afterwards. But one of the things I said, if you remember that Wisconsin game, we were talking about how Swanigan had such a big game, and there was a play, I don't remember which half it was, but Hammonds was in the high post. I think it might have been free throw line extended. I'm not exactly sure where. But Swanigan was maybe a foot behind the three-point line. And if you guys remember, Swanigan passed it into AJ. AJ immediately, without hesitating, passed it right back to Biggie for an open three, and he hit it. And I talked to Nathan about the confidence your senior leader has in your freshman to give the ball back to him for an open shot. I know a lot of Purdue fans don't like Biggie taking threes, but I don't really care what any Purdue fan says. I'm going to go with what AJ Hammonds thinks about his teammate, that confidence he has in the freshman, which is big going into the tournament, because Swanigan, if you're going to upset one of these teams, you win the first couple games, you get to that Sweet 16, you're playing, based on your seed, you're going to play some of the better teams in the country. To upset some of these better teams, you're going to have to get contributions from Caleb Swanigan. It's going to have to happen. Yep. And to have Hammonds with that confidence in Swanigan, I think is pretty big. And
the formula to beat Purdue this year has been number one, pack it in and make us hit outside shots.
Which is
Number
weird
two,
because we have the most 3-point shooting we've had in a long time.
But for long stretches, I mean, you look at the first
paper,
Maryland game.
On paper-wise,
we were 3 for 20, 24 or 2 for 22. I mean, it was pretty bad. The Michigan game we could not hit, but down the stretch here we've had guys rolling, and it's been a lot of different people, which is going to make us dangerous here in the Big Ten tournament and moving forward.
If we can hit shots from the outside with consistency, the inside game doesn't go anywhere. I mean, the inside game's not going anywhere with Haas and Hammonds and Swanigan with the stretch four. If we can start hitting those shots consistently from the outside, very, very dangerous team, Purdue is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
The emergence of Dakota, I think, has been really big because what Dakota can bring on the floor that the other shooters can't is he's a lot better going to the hole and finding an open teammate also. I think one game he had 6 assists to go with 11 or 12 points, and he can just take the ball to the hole a lot better than the other two shooters, Klein or Stevens.
He's a bigger guy. I mean, you think of Klein and Steven, those guys are sticks. That's what they are.
And then he can pass it real well, too, to go along with it.
Exactly. You guys have anything else to say before we go on to the awards? Anything?
No, let's get to it.
All right. We did our own awards. Robbie put together the post that we published today. I added some pictures I took over the last couple seasons. And our awards, very, very similar to the actual awards. Our award and, Coach and me, Denzel Valentine, Player of the Year, arguably the National Player of the Year as well. I mean, he's right up there with Buddy Hield. He's right up there with.
Don't say.
Is it just those two? I think it's just Buddy and Denzel. I would imagine.
I think at this
Tyler
point,
Ulis is. I mean, he won the SEC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year today. So there's a very short list, and Denzel Valentine's on it. So for him, the only other person that I would have possibly given it to was Yogi Ferrell. And that's it. Yeah. Not Utah because he fell off and Iowa's been terrible lately.
Mm-hmm.
And Yogi Ferrell's team won the Big Ten.
Well, I thought Dan Dockich had a good point. He picked Yogi as the MVP, but Denzel as the Player of the Year. And some people were having trouble grasping that distinction. But the fact was that to Indiana, Yogi was their most valuable player, and without him, they would have struggled, but there's no arguing the fact that Denzel Valentine put up the stats he did this year, which was pretty amazing.
I just killed a bug with Glade, by the way. Thought I should let you know.
Clinton, if you can see, my wife is like creeping over my shoulder right now.
I see her.
What is she doing back there? Hi. Oh, now it smells so bad. I gotta open a window. Hold on. Oh. That's probably how I got it in the first place. I don't remember what we were talking about. Denzel Valentine, yeah. Yogi Ferrell. But outside of those two, I mean, Hammonds was big, and Utah was big for 3/4 of the season, but you saw what Michigan State was when Valentine wasn't there. Yeah. You saw what he is when they are there. There's a reason there's going to be a lot of people picking Michigan State to go to another Final Four. A lot of it has to do with Izzo, but they're not going anywhere without Denzel Valentine. Yeah. Defensive Player of the Year, no-brainer. It's A.J. Hammonds. That's what we all agreed upon. And A.J.'s numbers, if you look at A.J.'s numbers, his rebounding and blocks were not quite as good as last year, but you look at the limited minutes he played, and the way he impacts the game is just it's unbelievable. When he's on his game.
When I think, teams really did not take it at him, One game where they really tried to take it inside was Michigan State, and he had 8 points that game.
Still crawling around.
Clinton.
Well, it's one of those bugs that are that you're not supposed to touch.
You could step on it unless you're in bare feet.
I'm wearing socks.
I don't know how Brazilians roll, but
I'm wearing socks. Anyways, I don't even remember. I just don't want those things around here.
We were talking about AJ, and statistically, he was not as good this year, but I felt like he had more of an impact on the game. Teams really avoided taking the ball into the paint on him. The one game I felt like they really tried to attack him was Michigan State. He ended with 8 blocks. So just his presence being in there, and if you watch them play, as soon as Haas or anyone else came in,
They go right at the hole.
Yep.
they'd go right at the basket. So just the respect I think teams had to show for AJ, and coaches game planning around that, was a huge part of why he won the award.
The freshman of the year, Ethan Happ, he and Diamond Stone, outside of Diamond Stone curb stomping that one guy for Wisconsin, those two had the best year as a freshman out. Biggie won the Big Ten or the Big Ten Freshman Player of the Year, Big Ten Freshman Player of the Week last week for the third time. But outside of, other than Happ and Stone, Swanigan I think was probably one of the better ones. But Happ and Stone were head and shoulders above Biggie, I think. Then again, Biggie didn't have to do as much for like Ethan did for Wisconsin.
I know Thomas Bryant got some consideration too, and I would put him along the lines of Diamond Stone, where he was more of a role player on that team, where Happ was one of Wisconsin's go-to players all year, and just that consistency throughout the season was huge for Wisconsin.
So
I did end up voting.
Do what?
I did end up voting Bryant, but I probably should have done Happ. My thinking on Bryant was once James Blackman went down, it seemed like Bryant picked up his game to another level. But yeah, Happ had the better numbers, and he was more into their offense from the very beginning of the season.
I'll tell you, the other guy in this all-freshman team by the coaches that I didn't watch anything of was Jordan Murphy of Minnesota. The only Minnesota game I watched was when they played Purdue, and that's the extent of my Jordan Murphy knowledge. Do you guys?
All I know is
super athletic.
I do remember thinking when they announced the team, though, it'd be funny if they stuck all 5 of those guys on the court at the same time. You would have zero ball handling.
That's what I'm saying. It's all big men.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had all power forwards and centers, but really, you look at it, this was one of the most competitive years in a long time as far as the freshman of the year goes. There was a lot of dominant, especially inside post presence that played in the Big Ten this year.
Now you look at that freshman list. Now, do you think any of these guys are one and done?
I would say Diamond Stone for sure.
I think Bryant's going to go pro too.
I hate to speculate, but I do know. I've had some inside information at Maryland that would shock me if Diamond Stone stayed for another year. But
because obviously Trimble's not staying, so just think if they brought those two back again, that'd be fun.
Oh no, I think he fell out of the top 20 of the draft.
I don't think it matters.
You don't think so?
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
He was a top 10 last year, I think.
Right, and I think probably. I don't know what you guys think. I would say Bryant and Biggie probably at least are around for another year.
I would think so.
Happ's probably at least a 3 or 4 year player. He won Freshman of the Year, but to me, he's not an NBA caliber
lottery
prospect
pick or anything like that. No.
My thing with Brian is I know he's from the East Coast, from one of those prep schools, and they usually push for their guys. They have people barking in their ears, and I can just see him being the type of guy like a Noah Vonleh that goes pro after a year.
Well, the only way he's going pro is if he's projected as a lottery pick. You're not going pro after 1 year as a 15 to 20 because the amount of money is just ridiculous in terms of the lottery as opposed to the rest of it. We did our Big Ten picks. They're on deep-wl.com. Do you guys have any other? Oh, Coach of the Year, of course. Tom Crean won it. The only other person I thought that might had a chance was Greg Gard.
Yep.
But for a while, I thought it was going to be Turgeon, and then Maryland just kind of fell off the cliff. But still top. What? The new rankings came out yesterday. What is Maryland ranked now? Do you guys know?
I think they're behind Purdue.
Let's see. I don't even know.
No, they're not 18th.
Oh, they're 18th now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, it's still a top 20 team. That's a 4 or 5 seed, depending on where it is. So a 12-5 matchup against Maryland. They might lose in the first round. Let's go to the Big Ten tournament bracket, and I want to get your guys' prediction for each game, and we'll have these on record. If you win, you don't get a prize. Just get, I don't know, high five or something. Game 1, Minnesota. I don't even want to do the first 2. Doesn't matter. We'll go to Thursday. Wednesday doesn't even exist. Game 3, Northwestern, Michigan. I don't know if that matters either.
Yeah.
Because they're going to play Indiana. I don't think either one of those teams is going to beat Indiana, to be honest. But what do you guys think, Northwestern or Michigan in this?
I would say I think Northwestern actually is gonna. I think Michigan's kind of trending downward, and I think Chris Collins still has Northwestern convinced that they have a lot to prove. And I know I heard him on the radio today, and he was talking about taking that next step for their program where they've got to start beating and winning some games they're not supposed to. I can see it. And
games, period. I mean,
I think Bryant McIntosh will be motivated to have another crack at Indiana, being an Indiana kid.
Yeah, you wanted to talk about that. This is supposed to be the year that Northwestern went to the tournament for the first time. I mean, a lot of people thought you had Alex Ola, you had Demps, you had some of these like McIntosh. Thought maybe this might be the year. They're the 9th seed in the Big Ten this year. Like I said,
they had a good non-conference. Only loss was in North Carolina, but
which was the only good team they played, though, right?
Yeah, which is why their RPI and their rankings are so low. But
yeah.
I mean, still for their school, a solid non-conference schedule.
They got 20 wins this year, and that's big for them. They're up to 20 wins, but they still have work to do. Jordan, what do you think?
I think I'll go with Michigan.
All right.
They seem to do pretty well in Indianapolis when the Big Ten tournament's there.
All right, so
I think their shooting will be on.
Robbie's got Northwestern. Jordan has Michigan. I don't even care. Game number 4 is the winner of Game 1 versus Iowa. So that's Minnesota or Illinois versus Iowa. Do you think either one of those teams can upset Iowa, Robbie?
No, I think Iowa's going to win. Illinois could give them a challenge if Nunn and Malcolm Hill are hitting all cylinders, but I think Iowa's coming out of that game.
Iowa's ranked as high as 3rd this year?
Yeah.
That's amazing. This year there are 15, 20 different teams that could win it all this year, I think, which is couldn't say that last year. It was Kentucky and then maybe 1 or 2 other teams, and one of those other teams did win. But this year, I just think it's wide open. So you guys, Jordan,
I think Illinois is mentally checked out.
Okay.
I think Iowa's got that one.
And then Minnesota. Then they had a weird win the other day, didn't they? Who'd they beat? Minnesota. Oh,
I thought Minnesota beat Maryland.
Yeah, then they got beat by 50 against Rutgers or something ridiculous. They were down by
they lost by 20-23, I think.
Ugh. But then didn't Minnesota
could end up beating Illinois.
Yeah, Minnesota lost a few players. They're stupid. Game number 5, Penn State and Ohio State. I feel like Penn State has at least one good guard every year. I don't know. I mean, Taylor Battle and all those guys. But this year, I don't think they have enough to get past Ohio State. What do you guys think?
No, Shep Garner's been good, and that's been about it as far as consistency goes. Penn State had some big wins, obviously beating Indiana, but I would pick Ohio State in this game.
Jordan, what do you think?
I think Ohio State's just too athletic and too big. I just don't think Penn State's going to be able to match up with Ohio State.
Ohio State, I guess. I don't know. Then game number 6 is the Rutgers-Nebraska winner versus Wisconsin. We're not even going to waste time with that. Game number 7, winner. I assume all the games we skipped are going to end up in upsets, but Game 7 is winner of Game 3 versus IU, which is Northwestern Michigan versus IU. Either one of those teams can beat IU.
I don't see it.
I mean,
IU plays so well at home, and this is basically a home game for them. I'm going to pick Indiana.
Then we'll get to our game. Jordan. Oh, sorry, Jordan. I was just assuming you wouldn't. Okay. Yeah. Game number 8, which is the winner of Game 4, which is the two terrible teams, or Iowa versus Purdue. Do you think Purdue's the higher seed, but they've lost to Iowa twice? Does Purdue win this third matchup with Iowa? What do you think, Robbie?
I think they do. I've been told my whole life it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. Yes. Both games have been competitive. I think that Purdue gets over the hump and finally beats Iowa this game.
There's not one team in this Big Ten that Purdue can't beat. I mean, it's just Jordan, do you think Purdue's going to win then?
Yeah, with Rob's can't beat a team 3 times in 1 year. And I think Purdue has finally kind of maybe figured out the press break. And I think those two things.
When they turned the ball over, 4 or 5 times in a row against Maryland, I wanted to scream and die. It was terrible. And then it happened once or twice against Wisconsin, but then after that, they figured out what to do, and I think they carry that on. Purdue wins. Yeah. Game number 9, Michigan State is the higher seed. They play Penn State or Ohio State. Now, Penn State's not going to win, I don't think. Can Ohio State beat Michigan State? What do you guys think?
I think they can.
There's no D'Angelo Russell. There's no Evan Turner. I don't know.
I'm picking Michigan State to win this. The thing that
keep this in mind. Michigan State's going to be playing for that 1 seed. If they lose in this Big Ten tournament, I don't know if that's going to drop them off that 1 line, but if they win this Big Ten tournament, they're definitely going to get a 1 seed. So keep that in mind. This isn't a Michigan State team that's already got things locked up.
And that's the thing. You got a lot of times. Tom Izzo, when he brings his team into the Big Ten tournament, really could care less. It almost seems like.
Yep.
I feel like this year they have something to play for, and I think they're going to actually make an effort to make a run at the Big Ten tournament title here. So I would pick Michigan State in this game. I think they'll be pretty locked in.
Go ahead.
A loss here, I think, would knock them off the 1 line. So I think Izzo's going to have them ready to go.
Take a look at the 1 seeds right now: Kansas, Virginia, Villanova, and North Carolina. So Michigan State's not even a number 1 seed right now. They are a 2 seed in the Villanova bracket, which I think that's a pretty nice draw for them regardless. But, I mean, they've got work to do. It's not like, as you said, Robbie, they're not locked into that 1, or they're not locked into the whatever it is.
And the thing, for Michigan State is that one of North Carolina and Virginia is going to take another loss at some point this weekend. So an opportunity there for Michigan State if they play well.
I'm never going to pick Virginia to do anything until they actually do something. They seem like they're always it's stupid. It's just like Villanova. I don't know. I don't even care about those. If Purdue's in either one of those 2 brackets, I will be thrilled. If they're in Kansas or North Carolina, I might have a little bit of a problem. But Purdue can beat Virginia or Villanova. I think Kansas. There's a very select few teams in the nation that I don't think Purdue can beat unless everything goes 100% correct, and that is Kansas, North Carolina. I think that might just about be it, to be honest with you. I don't know. We'll get back to the Big Ten tournament. We'll talk about the other thing in a second. Then game number 10 is the winner of Game 6, which could be a Wisconsin-Maryland matchup on Friday night. That would be a fun one. It's also at 9 o'clock. If I have to drive through the night Thursday night, there's no way on earth I'll be up Friday night watching this. But that's going to be a good game. 2 of the best teams in the Big Ten in the 3-6 matchup.
I'm picking Wisconsin in that game. I think.
So you think Maryland's just done?
I don't think they're done. I think there's something there, but they've kind of leveled off, in my opinion. And the thing is, for Maryland, if Trimble were to ever get going like he was last year, they'd be tough to beat. But the way both teams are playing right now, I would pick Wisconsin to win that game.
Jordan, what do you think?
I just think Wisconsin's more mentally tough right now. I just think Maryland, they just seem to be, it might be Trimble shooting, I don't know, but they just seem to not quite be locked in, ready to go right now, which isn't a good time of the year for that to be happening. But Wisconsin just seems to be just completely locked in and confident, and Nigel Hayes is playing really well, and Hap's playing really well, and I think Hap takes it too, Stone, and I can definitely see Wisconsin pulling off that win.
Maryland's going to win by 10 points. Saturday, I just think Trimble. I think it's going to come back to Maryland in this Big Ten tournament. I think Maryland can make it to the Big Ten championship game. I really do. The talent's there. They've got a good coach. I just think they need a refresh, and I don't know. I
can definitely see that happening.
The talent's there. Then we move to Saturday, the final four teams. The way we have it set up with our picks would be Purdue, Indiana. You guys have Wisconsin, Michigan State. I have Maryland, Michigan State. Those are the five best teams in the conference regardless. Those five. Four of them are playing Saturday. You start with Purdue IU, a rematch. Robbie, what do you think?
Unfortunately, I'm probably going to pick the Hoosiers. I'm going to be cheering for Purdue. I think if things go well, Purdue has an advantage, but we have just not had a lot of success in the Big Ten tournament. And I don't know, just something in my mind is I see us struggling a little bit, and it in no way deters what I think we can do in the NCAA tournament. I just, for some reason, do not like this matchup against Indiana.
You got a chance, when I say you, I mean Purdue, the chance to beat – you went 0-3 against Iowa and Indiana in the conference. You have a chance to avenge those two losses in back-to-back days of the Big Ten tournament. And I don't know. I think that I think Purdue could do it. I really do. Now, on the other hand,
and don't get me wrong, I actually wanted Purdue to have a rematch against Indiana in the Big Ten tournament, and I think it's going to be a great game. My heart is telling me to pick Purdue, my head's telling me to pick Indiana, and I hope my pick is wrong, but I'm going with the Hoosiers for now.
Jordan?
I think I'm going to go with my heart over my head. I think Purdue figures something out against IU in that second half, and I think they can use some of that going into this game, and they're definitely going to be the underdog because we know how Indianapolis is, and we know how IU fans will give up eating food to be able to pay for a ticket to go to Baker's Life. So they'll be the underdog, but I think they figured something out, and I'm going with my heart. My brain says no, don't pick them, but I'm going with my heart in this one.
So 2 Purdue and 1 IU on that one. Game number 12 is Michigan State versus either Maryland or Wisconsin. Can Maryland or Wisconsin beat Michigan State, Robbie? I know they can, but what do you think will happen?
I'm picking Michigan State. Don't want to spill the beans, but I would pick Michigan State to win the whole
right.
Big Ten tournament. I think with the leadership they have, with Matt Costello and obviously Denzel Valentine and Bryn Forbes, you've got 3 seniors that are going to be pretty locked in, and with the kind of the carrot dangling out in front of them, so to speak, of getting a 1 seed for the tournament, I think that's going to be enough extra motivation to get them through this game.
Jordan?
If Maryland is the one that's playing Michigan State, I think Maryland could beat Michigan State. I think they have the talent to match up, but since I picked Wisconsin, I think Michigan State goes on and moves on to the final game.
I think I don't know. I'll tell you what, Maryland has a better chance of beating Michigan State than Wisconsin does.
I agree with that.
But who knows? Maybe neither one of those teams even makes it to Saturday. Then Sunday, you guys have IU and Michigan State. I've got Purdue and
I had
Jordan. Jordan's got Purdue and Michigan State.
You got Purdue and Michigan State. Yeah, how about that?
Rob betrayed
Rob did, yeah. So, Robbie, do you think IU can beat Michigan State Sunday then?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to redeem myself from picking the Hoosiers and pick them to lose this game to Michigan State. And I really think I see Denzel Valentine playing very well in the tournament. I mean, he's played well all year, and I see them getting past Indiana and winning the Big Ten tournament and locking up a 1 seed for the NCAAs.
So either Denzel Valentine does he have a twin brother?
He has a brother that coaches at Oakland University. I don't know if it's his twin. But...
Okay, because was he on the Michigan State staff last year? Because when I went to East Lansing and then in the Big Ten tournament, I sat behind Michigan State's bench for 2 or 3 games, and I feel like Denzel Valentine's twin was one of their coaches. I don't know if it was him or not, but
I'm pulling it up for you right now, but
okay.
he trying to find what I can, but
Go to the Michigan State coaching staff.
it looks like he was on their staff at least for a little bit as a graduate manager.
So last year?
So yeah, that was the article I'm looking at was from September 2013. So he probably would have been on their staff at that time.
Okay, I just wondered about that. So Michigan State, Jordan. I mean, what's your champion? Who's your champion?
Yeah, it's Michigan State. If it's hard to beat Iowa, or if it's hard for Iowa to beat Purdue 3 times, I think it's impossible for Purdue to beat Michigan twice or Michigan State twice in a season. They're just too good, and there's a chance that they still have to win that game for the 1 seed, perhaps. So I just think Purdue I think will max out their seed line if they make it to the championship, but I think Michigan State could still be going for the 1 seed.
I think I'm going to handicap it like this. I think Michigan State has the best chance to win this whole thing, and then I think it's Maryland, and then I think it's Purdue, and then I think it's Indiana. I think Indiana is going to cool off considerably in this Big Ten tournament. I'm not saying they're not going to do well in the NCAAs, but I think they're gonna chill out a little bit. Yeah, Indiana.
IU doesn't have success in this tournament. They've only been to the championship game once, and is this 11 years, or I'm not sure how many years now. Maybe it's 18 or something. I can't remember. But IU's only been in the championship once, and they lost. So, Purdue hasn't had a ton of success, but they've at least won one.
Didn't Purdue and IU play in the championship in like the late 90s or something? What am I thinking of?
I don't think so, because I know Purdue's only won one of them.
They've won 2, haven't they?
They have? I thought they only won with the Etuan class and
no, I thought they won in the late 90s or early 2000s or something.
I think they've won twice, but I don't have that info in front of me to tell you for sure.
So you guys are going with Michigan State to win it all. If it's not Michigan State, I think it's going to be Maryland. And hopefully it's Purdue. But let me see. Purdue.
And I think, Jordan, to add to your point, I think most of the predictions I've seen for the NCAA bracket have Purdue at a 4 or 5 seed. I'd say for sure if they make the championship game, they're a solid 4. They might get bumped up to a 3, depending on how everything shakes out. So, but that's they're not going to move any higher than that for sure.
Hey, remember when we went to the CBI in 2012? That was cool.
Yeah, Purdue's only won.
It was so bad. Let me see here. Big Ten tournament results. Where
Purdue was a runner-up the first year, but they've only won one.
Yeah. So who did they lose to that first year?
Michigan.
Michigan.
It says it was vacated. So does that make them the winner?
Technically, I guess that would have been wins they had to vacate from the whole. I can't remember the guy's name. The booster.
5. Yeah.
It was after the Fab 5, but they had to vacate wins from the mid to late 90s for that.
So that, yeah. So I guess Purdue has won twice then.
Perfect. All right. We're going to wrap this up. And next Sunday, after I get home from the championship game, we're going to do a bracket pick show Sunday night. Because the playing games start Tuesday, right? Or I guess they're not playing games anymore. Or they are, right? There's 2.
They changed it, I think.
I don't know what it is.
It's still called the first 4, but they changed it back to the round of 64 is round 1 now.
Yeah.
Okay. So that starts Tuesday, though, right?
Yes.
So we'll either do it Sunday night or Monday night, but we'll have this the NCAA prediction podcast or whatever out the Tuesday morning of when all this enjoyment begins. It's going to be fun. If Tulane, I told Robbie this, if Tulane wins Thursday night, I am going to be I can't say that I'll be pissed because that's not nice. But it's not nice to Tulane since I worked for them.
Have they won a game yet in their conference?
All right, well, they've won 3. Obviously, anything can happen. What I'm getting at is if Tulane loses Thursday night, let's see here. UCF, yeah, they I guess they only lost by 8. I don't know what I was thinking. No, they didn't beat UCF this year. They beat USF. How could I get my wins mixed up? So many of them. They won. All right, this is a fun stat for you. They won on December 22nd, and they beat Southern Miss. They didn't win again until January 12th, which is fine. But then they didn't win again until February 10th. So they won twice in 2 months this season, and
jump for joy
a couple of times. Had some weird moments. Whatever. So, but the bottom line is...
Question, are you still recording right now?
Oh, of course. I'm just looking... You're
going to have to edit out that Tulane rant, honestly.
No.
You're going to lose a lot of people there at the end.
I blacked out all of February for Tulane. So now I've got to go back and see what exactly did happen. None of these games... They're just... it was a mess this year. Anyways, the problem is if they win Thursday night, I was super pissed that I'll miss Friday's game. I won't be able to make it to Indy till Saturday. So it all depends on if Tulane wins or loses. They play at 6 on Thursday night. Probably get out of North Carolina around 9. Takes 10 hours to get home, and I need to be at Banker's Life at 10:30 in the morning. So you do the math on how much sleep I'm going to get Thursday and Friday. So it could be a very
solid 3 hours.
If that, yeah. So I don't know. We'll just see what happens. Purdue got the double bye, though, so they did their part. Now it's up to Tulane to do their part and get me to Indy. I hope no Tulane
fans
will
Knights.
Yes.
Let's go Knights.
I can't say what I was going to say publicly. All right, you guys have anything else? We're going to wrap this up. Anything?
No, boiler up, man.
Oh,
all right.
boiler up.
Jordan is on Twitter at Jordan. What is it?
Jordan Kessler 09.
Okay. There's an underscore in there somewhere.
Yep. And
then Robbie is
Rob_Dupre 3.
I'm at CDCole55. You can follow us the website on Twitter at DeepDishWL. I'll have all your Big Ten tournament coverage, except when Tulane goes through and wins the American Athletic Conference tournament, and I never get to come home. We'll see what happens with that. But like I said, we'll do a bracket prediction Sunday or Monday nights. Look out for that Tuesday. And stay tuned. The Nathan Baird interview is coming up right after this. Thanks, Jordan. Thanks, Robbie. And I'll talk to you later.
Have a good one.
See ya.
Welcome back to Deep Dish Sports Show podcast. It's time for a Purdue basketball Big Ten tournament preview with Nathan Baird of the Lafayette Journal and Courier. Nathan covers Purdue basketball, amongst other things. You can follow him on Twitter at InBairdJC. And Nathan, we get things going tomorrow night with the 13-12, 14-11 games, which I don't think I'm going to watch. And then Thursday, a little bit more competitive. And then Friday, the top 4 seeds play. Whoever makes it through. And Purdue did get that double bye. They don't play until Friday afternoon. I think that's good for everyone involved.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there on, you have an advantage sometimes if you have already played, kind of got some of the jitters out, the rust off, however you want to look at it, and used to the environment, used to the gym and the rims and all that stuff. But it's just basic math. I mean, you'd rather – at this point of the season, especially when you've probably got some bumps and bruises and guys who could use a couple days off, you would rather have those only have to play 3 games to win a championship than have to play 4 or 5. It's just It's just common sense. So and you're just less susceptible. In the case of someone like Purdue too, if you go back to 1 year ago, I thought getting the double bye was really big for them because as it turned out, they probably would have got in the NCAA tournament even if they hadn't won that quarterfinal game. They wouldn't have had as good a seed. They would have been farther down, maybe even in a play-in situation. But I think they would have got in because they ended up being a 9. So things weren't as dire as they thought they might have been last year, or not quite as urgent. But it helped them to not have to play to the quarterfinals, because if they have to play in the round before that, you're playing against potentially a team that isn't going to the NCAA tournament. And if you lose that game, now you're in bad shape. Whereas if you lose to another NCAA team, it doesn't look as bad on your resume. So this year, I think I actually just wrote up a thing that is going to be running here in the next couple days with just sort of the Big Ten preview stuff that we're doing with the Star. But they don't have a lot to lose going into this tournament, I don't think, if you're Purdue. I mean, you're not going to play until the quarterfinals. You're probably going to get Iowa again, so you're going to get another NCAA tournament team. And it's a team that people already know you don't even match up that well against. So you get to kind of maybe disprove some of that, but it's say they lose that game. I mean, their NCAA credentials are pretty secure. It'd be really a surprise to me to see them drop below a 5 based on anything that happens here in this tournament, unless you could see something like in Illinois or Minnesota goes on a run and takes them out in the process. But that seems pretty remote just because of what they've dealt with personnel-wise and the fact that they'd have to get through Iowa too. So I think this is a big opportunity for Purdue, because I think they're going in kind of, use a football term, pin your ears back and just sort of go into this thing and say, we can do a lot of damage here and we can really help ourselves, because like I said, you're facing Iowa in that first round. You're probably facing presumably Iowa. You're facing another NCAA team after that, and almost surely an NCAA team in the championship game.
Right.
And that gives you 3 opportunities to pick up big wins and potentially climb up on that NCAA tournament seed line.
We'll get to the tournament in just a second, but the Big Ten awards came out yesterday. I'm going to go over the media ones with you because you're not a coach. You are part of the media. And although, did you apply for the Wisconsin job or not?
I didn't.
That's too bad.
I didn't want to get bumped up into another tax bracket.
Yes, that was the main drawback. The player of the year, Denzel Valentine, I don't think anyone has any problem with that one. He is potentially the player of the year overall. Did you vote for Denzel?
I did, yeah. I actually posted my votes.
Okay.
If people want to see them on jconline.com. But
there you go.
To me, it wasn't really that close. I mean, I thought that early this season, I thought there was a really, when Iowa was taking off and Utah was playing so well, and Michigan State, especially when Valentine was hurt, I thought there was a point this season where Utah was kind of the clear choice. But Valentine really just kind of ran away and hid with it with what he did this year for that team. And I think there's a really strong case that he could be the like you say, the national player of the year this year. So I was really, I know that there was some chatter out there. I'm sure Iowa supporters thought Utah should have got more consideration. I know that IU supporters thought Yogi Ferrell should get more consideration. There may have even been Purdue people in context who thought someone like A.J. Hammonds, or even at Wisconsin, someone like Nigel Hayes, maybe they thought those people deserved more consideration. But I thought it was a no-brainer. I think it's a hard case to make that he's not the Big Ten Player of the Year.
Freshman of the year, Ethan Happ, Wisconsin. Once again, no problem with that. But I'm going to talk about Biggie Swanigan. Picked up his third Big Ten Freshman of the Week award after just had a dominant performance against Wisconsin. He finished with 27, I think.
27 points, 8 rebounds. Yeah.
Yeah, his best game of the season, numbers wise. Now I know other things go into factoring into best games, whatever. But I wanted to get your input on how far you think Biggie has progressed from that first game against Wisconsin to this last game against Wisconsin.
Well, I think the key for him is just doing what he did the other night, which is, I hate to use one of Matt Painter's terms directly, but it's just by plain simple. I mean, it wasn't anything complicated that they did. Wisconsin's paying extra attention to produce centers, as a lot of teams will. That leaves Swanigan with a one-on-one matchup where he's not facing any help side defense, and they just got him the ball repeatedly and let him score, and that's what he did. And he was drawing a lot of fouls and getting to the line and converting there, which is big for him. There have been times this year where he's been up and down on the free throws, but he was really strong there the other night. And really, that's how they put the game away was just getting the ball to him and kind of letting him flatten people down there. So not literally flatten people, but kind of by flattening Wisconsin, by just, they didn't really have an answer for that. It's a really damned if you do, damned if you don't situation that Purdue puts teams in. And he's been one of the keys to that all along, or he's been theoretically one of the keys to that. From the beginning of the season, people were like, well, if you do what Wisconsin did last night, Swanigan needs to make you pay. Or if you're paying too much attention to the 3-pointers, then those big guys are going to make you pay, or if you pay too much attention to Swanigan and the 3-pointers, then the centers make you pay. There's always something. So you're starting to see that. I mean, he's part of what I think is kind of a balance that seems to really be gelling for Purdue right now between the shooting and the big guys. And but it's more nuanced than that, because I think a lot of it is this team, when it's really clicking, it's the way it's moving, and it's moving as much without the ball as with the ball, maybe even more so without the ball. It's just getting yourself open, running the offense, and being in position to capitalize on an opportunity when it comes, just in the flow of the motion there.
There was one play in particular now, this just stood out to me for whatever reason, that Wisconsin game. AJ was in the post, Biggie was at the top of the key, and Biggie threw it into AJ, and AJ threw it right back out to Biggie, and Biggie hit a three. And I was just thinking, you've got a freshman and a senior. You've got, what Biggie, their games are a little different, obviously. AJ more of a rim protector and stuff like that, but they're still big men. But I thought it was pretty cool to see the confidence AJ had in Biggie to throw it back out for an open shot. And I don't know if he wanted to repost again, but to throw it back out for a possible shot. I just thought the confidence the senior had in the freshman was pretty big.
No, I think that's a good point, and I think that's one of those scenarios. I remember talking to some people after the Nebraska game, and not to get completely sidetracked from the point you bring it up, but I think it all ties together, because that was a game where Purdue shot the ball pretty well too, and then people are just kind of like shrugging their shoulders, like, well, what do you do if you're trying to defend that? And the same applies to that high-low action. I mean, if Swanigan's going to be able to make passes inside, and then they're going to be able to kick it right back out to him, and he can knock down shots, you're really catching teams in between there. I don't know if that's something you're going to see a lot, but I remember that play pretty vividly too, and it was
just bang bang.
Yeah, it stood out to me at the time. It was almost like it was drawn up that way, as quickly as they kicked it. He almost just patted it right back out to him, and he put the shot up and hit it. So. Swanigan is a weapon from not just in the paint, but he is a weapon from the perimeter. I know that Purdue fans were getting anxious with him for a while there, as far as the threes he was putting up, but he's no different than anybody else. He's no different than P.J. Thompson or Dakota Mathias or whoever the other top 3-point shooters are on this team. He's got to take them at the right time, and he wasn't at times this year. He was taking them kind of early in the clock. He was taking them in poor, with poor as far as your defensive advantage or disadvantage you're facing at that time. And when he's open, when it's in rhythm, when it's a natural shot for him, he's a really dangerous player. And you could say the same thing about A.J. Hammonds now. He's very selective with it, but he can knock down those shots from the perimeter. You're starting to see this offense, I think. It's not. I don't think it's exploding necessarily, but it's growing in the right ways, as far as guys just sort of feeling into their role and knowing what they can and can't do and how they can help the team the most.
I think I recall one of the reasons Biggie wanted to come to Purdue over Michigan State was to play that stretch four. And he's getting a chance to do that. As we see, he's out there on the perimeter at times, maybe not always hitting threes, but a couple steps inside the 3-point line. So he's kind of developed that a little bit more. And I can see, painters giving him that chance that he said he would.
Yeah, I mean, that was a factor there. I mean, they wanted he and his family wanted to be able to play the 4, because professionally that's where he projects most naturally, and he could do it at a place where there's already established true centers, because Hammonds and Haas are going to play the 5, and that's it, other than the handful of seconds where they've been thrown in the game together. But at the same time, that's a different way of playing than any of those guys were used to before. None of those guys had consistently played with, Swanigan had never consistently played next to, day in and day out, another 7-footer. And those 7-footers had never consistently played day in, day out with a guy like Swanigan. You remember last year, Vince Edwards was at the 4, and Vince is a good player, but a very different kind of player than Caleb Swanigan is. So there was an adjustment period that had to go on there, and maybe it took a little bit longer than they thought it would. It's something that kind of maybe got disguised a little bit, obscured by just who you're playing early in a season. And when they had to go up against some tougher teams, I think it might have got exposed. But that's one of those things where I think they're starting to it's starting to click a little bit for them. Now, I've said that, and they could go into another matchup with Iowa, which is like I said, not a good fit for them, and it all could go sideways. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the trend right now, really, you could say it started in I would say at halftime of the Indiana game. You may even be able to go back to the Michigan game before that, which is a game where they were pretty disappointed that they lost, obviously, because they're up by 6 with 3:15 to go or whatever. But they feel like they were getting the shots that night. They just weren't falling. They felt like the offensive flow they wanted was there for the most part. For whatever reason, shots weren't falling, especially on the inside. You remember a lot of points left on the rim that night. So you can even go back now 5 games and see that the offense kind of growing into what it wants to be. And you've definitely seen it over the past, I think it's 4 straight games now where they've shot 50% or better. They were over 60% in both halves against Wisconsin, scoring 91 points against a team that's going to the NCAA tournament. I know it's at home, but still that means something. And those are all positive signs for this team.
That's Nathan Baird of the Lafayette Journal and Courier. You can follow him on Twitter at InBairdJC, talking a little pretty basketball, Big Ten awards, Big Ten tournament. Nathan, before I get your Big Ten tournament prediction, I'm going to ask you one more thing about the Boilermakers. A.J. Hammond's first team, all Big Ten, first team Defensive Player of the Year. We've been talking about A.J. for 3 years. Is he going to come back? Is he going to go? Is he this? Is he that? Is his work ethic there? Is he consistency?
I can break news. He will enter the 2016 NBA draft.
So that part is taken care of. My question for you is, did you see what you thought you'd see from A.J. Hammond's his senior year, or did he maybe exceed expectations a little bit, or did he maybe not live up to them as much?
I don't think it's either exceeding or not living up to. Okay. So I guess this is about what I thought you would see from him. I know it was discouraging. Discouraging is maybe too harsh a word, but when he's got to get benched at the start of the year, that's obviously not a good look for someone who's supposed to be your senior leader, someone who everyone is saying has matured and has grown into something better. And but I think they handled that process pretty well, and I think it's one of the other things that he's probably better for it in the long run, whether he wants to admit it or not. And I think this is probably about what you should expect from him. I mean, he's scoring pretty consistently. I mean, he's leading his team in scoring. It's almost 15 a game. And
in limited minutes.
Right. And I think what's also important is notice how much less he's fouling this season. I mean, you're not seeing that early game. You're not seeing that early game foul trouble, and that's probably – I think that may be the thing that ended up getting him Defensive Player of the Year in some ways because, the blocks are still there, but they didn't really, take off. In fact, he may even be a little bit below his career average or maybe just right at it. And rebounding, he's not even the leading rebounder on his team. But he's able to now do all those things defensively without putting himself in foul trouble, without putting Purdue in a bad situation by having to go to Haas. And not that Haas is a bad player, but Hammonds is a better player top to bottom, and you want him on the floor as much as possible. So right. I think that was probably a factor. It's some of those small things in terms of discipline, in terms of skill that you maybe only appreciate over the long run. If you step back and kind of take the long view of things and you realize, this other night against Wisconsin, he got up to 4 fouls and had to sit for a big chunk of those last six and a half minutes. And I can't think of a lot of other times where he's really been in foul trouble this season. A couple other games he has. There was one game recently, actually, where it's escaping me which one it was, but he sat for a significant portion of the first half because of foul problems. Was that at Indiana? I can't remember. One of the recent games he did. But,
yeah, not as much as last year. I mean,
But I'm not saying it's never a problem, but it's something where it's not a nightly concern that you have with him. Yep. So that's, I think, been the biggest factor in terms of him becoming a better player. It's that, and then it's all the things behind the scenes as far as, everyone says, he always showed up to play on game nights, or at least he would more consistently get up for games. It was a lot harder to get him up for practices, and now that's not the case. He's showing up, ready to fight and work. I think Isaac Haas's presence was a significant role to play in that. And now that he's done that, that obviously makes you a better player when the games come around.
All right, last thing. I'm looking at the bracket. The top 4 teams play Friday against whoever makes it through, top seeds, not top seeds, whatever it is. If Purdue, what is it, Illinois, Minnesota, or Iowa, if they get by those, whatever of those three teams, it would most likely be a rematch with IU. And then, who knows from there. But who is your championship game, and then who do you think is going to win the Big Ten tournament?
Wow. Well, I guess, starting with Purdue's side of things, I think they'll beat Iowa if they get them a third time. I think it's teams that are trending in opposite directions.
Right.
And I think Purdue is starting to see that it doesn't have to fear those press situations. We saw it the other night against Wisconsin, and they did, I think, turn the ball over the first time against it, and all of a sudden everybody in that crowd it's stirring. It's a buzz.
Those flashbacks, yeah.
It's a buzz that rolls through Mackey Arena, and kind of a forlorn buzz. And then, but they figured it out. I mean, they just, then somebody gives the ball to Vince Edwards, he dribbles it confidently up court, and all of a sudden you're across midcourt and you can set up an offense. I know it's not that simple, but in some ways it is. It's the thing that I think has frustrated Matt Painter the most is that he understands. I mean, he was a player too. He understands you get flustered in those situations, but you got to just take the ball and go up court with it. And they're starting to, I think, figure that out. So I think they can beat Iowa. What I don't know is if that second time going up against IU, I know it was a 4-point game the first time, but it was also a 19-point game with 10 minutes left or whatever. And they've got to be better at being away from Mackey Arena and not turning the ball over, not giving away points to the other team. And that's going to be another hostile environment. So until they prove that they can do that, I probably wouldn't pick them to do that. I think it's certainly in them to do it, but I don't know for sure that I don't know if it's something we've actually seen them do. I mean, probably not since they went into Pittsburgh have we seen them go against an NCAA tournament team away from Mackey Arena and beat them. And they're just Wisconsin. Wisconsin was the other. At the time, we didn't know. We
didn't know they were going to be Wisconsin.
Wisconsin wasn't Wisconsin yet at that time.
Yeah.
So, and on the other side of it, I think you have to probably go with the team that does this all the time, which is Michigan State. Coming out of there and moving through. So right now, I know that's a boring pick, 1 and 2, but I would probably take Michigan State probably to beat IU for the championship, if I'm just prognosticating off the top of my head here. But like I said before, I think there's a big opportunity for Purdue here because I think a lot of people are probably not picking them to win, and the expectations aren't going to be that high. The pressure's not that high, and the stakes of losing are not that low. I mean, right now,
they're not a bubble team. Yeah.
Right. Not only are they not a bubble team, but I think they're very comfortably a 5 seed in this tournament. I mean, you're going in ranked number 13 in the nation, and you're only going to face other NCAA tournament caliber teams in this thing. And if you can win that first one, especially, you're pretty set up. So they're going to be in a situation here where there's not a lot to lose and a lot to gain. And we'll see if that's something that something they can kind of feel and something that can help them this week.
You say they're a 5 seed now. If they go through, they beat IU.
Be a 4 seed right now. Actually, I should say.
Okay.
If you look at bracketmatrix.com, which I think the latest I saw was there's like 101 different bracketologies that it puts together and kind of averages out. Right now, they had been the top scoring 5, the highest average 5, and now they're the lowest average 4.
They're a 4.5.
Right. Yeah. So they're right in that range of
4 or 5 range
to get a 4 seed. So, and I think if you win a couple games,
you beat IU. Yeah, you beat IU. You beat Iowa. You move up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly probably a solid 4, and then maybe pushing up towards a 3 seed. So.
It's the best time of the year for a lot of people. So anything can happen, and it's got to play the game, and it's fun for us to all watch. That's for sure.
I think this could be a really fun tournament, just from top to bottom. I know that some of what looked like it was going to be fun has been diminished a little bit because Minnesota with the roster problems that they've had, and but everybody is, other than Rutgers, has sprung one of these crazy upsets this year, or seemingly crazy upsets, and I think that we probably haven't seen the last one.
All right, Nathan, I'll be there. Well, Tulane loses driving through the night, and I'll be there Friday for the game. If they don't, I won't be there till Saturday, but I'll be there at some point, and hopefully, Purdue can win a game or two and get another chance at IU, maybe Michigan State. Who knows what'll happen? But I'll see you in Indy in a couple days.
All right, safe travels.
All right, thanks a lot. Nathan Baird there of the Lafayette Journal and Courier. You can follow him on Twitter at NBairdJC. And all right, that'll do it. Thanks, Nathan.
No problem.
See you.